many in his generation, Merton Baker got his first airplane ride in a surplus Curtiss Jenny. At 5 years old, Mert was too short to see out the cockpit, but that ride at the Fort Atkinson Airport in 1929 lit a spark that would lead him to bigger and better airplanes. Merton W. Baker, nicknamed Mert, was flight commander of the U.S. Air Force 42nd Tactical Electronic Warfare Squadron, based at Takili Royal Thai Air Force Base in Thailand from February 1968 to January of 1969. Mert flew as an aircraft commander in the EB-66 aircraft, and he and his crew helped to protect countless fighter and bomber crews from North Vietnamese air defenses. The EB-66s gathered information about enemy radars and frequencies, information vital to bombing mission planners. And they flew during bombing missions to locate new threats and jam enemy radars. U.S. Air Force bombing missions deep into North Vietnam always required EB-66 support, but there were relatively few EB-66s available. That meant a high rate of missions for EB-66 airplanes and their crews. In his 12 months in Vietnam, Mert flew 150 electronic countermeasure missions with over 600 hours in 3 different models of the EB-66 aircraft. On one mission of March of 1968, Mert and his EB-66 crew were tasked with jamming enemy radars to protect a large force of Republic F-105 Thunder Chief fighter bombers that were attacking targets near the North Vietnamese capital city of Hanoi. It was a period of the war when the North Vietnamese defenders were increasingly aggressive, and the U.S. Air Force was experiencing a high rate of aircraft losses. A large force of North Vietnamese MiG interceptors awaited the attackers, and might have inflicted heavy losses on the F-105s, but Mert's aircraft used a new tactical decoy maneuver that day that misdirected the MiGs away from the incoming F-105s. It was a risky tactic for the EB-66, but it worked, and the F-105s bombed their targets and returned to base without losing a single aircraft. For that mission, Mert Baker was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. In this rare interview, Mert recounted one mission that exemplified the dangers they faced.
That was near the end of the whole tour when the B-52s were making round-the-clock raids in formation on North Vietnam. And it was kind of a moonlit night. We were in an orbit to do jamming, to cut radars down against the B-52s. And I looked up because there was a way on the canopy of the B-56, all you had to do was kind of look around. I looked up and we were right under a stream of B-52s with the bomb doors open.
Holy cow.
We either got assigned the wrong orbit or the B-52s were off track, but it really didn't matter.
It was hardly the first time Mert had faced danger in a cockpit. In March of 1944, as a newly minted second lieutenant with a new pair of pilot's wings, he was assigned to the 829th Squadron, 485th Bomb Group, 15th Air Force, as a co-pilot in a consolidated B-24 Liberator heavy bomber, based at Venosa, Italy. From there, he flew 35 missions as co-pilot in a B-24 called Homeward Angel. Most of Mert's 10-man B-24 crew survived the war, with the loss of just one. Navigator Joe Berkowitz was killed by a 20mm cannon shell in a fighter attack over Hungary in July of 1944.
we knew a lot of what he did, although he didn't sit down and brag about it or talk about it. But Dad was a co-pilot, and the navigator sat right behind the two pilots, and he was killed when a Focke-Wulf 190 attacked them and fired a 20 millimeter shell, and it went right through his flak jacket. And 50 years later, when Dad was telling me about that, it was still emotional to him that he lost that crew member.
When World War II ended, Mert piloted Douglas C-54 Skymasters, repatriating Allied soldiers, sailors, and airmen who had been held in Japanese prisoner of war camps. He left active duty in November 1945. Called back into active service in 1953, he instructed pilots in the Lockheed T-33 jet trainer and the Boeing B-47 Stratojet. In 1957, he was assigned to the Boeing Company in Wichita as a B-52 flight test and acceptance pilot, and later to the Cessna Company for the T-37 jet trainer and its combat variant. After his year in Vietnam, he served as the Air Force's plant representative at General Dynamics and Fairchild Republic, and as commander of the Air Force Contract Management Division of the Air Force Systems Command, where he oversaw some 3,400 employees, managing 12,000 contracts with a face value of $44 billion.
I think military officers are, I'm not saying not the best parents, but they're kind of strict parents. I remember one day at the dinner table, this was at McConnell, Wichita, Dad pointed at Jeff and I, and he said, "I'm going to tell you one time what my original Air Force serial number was when I first went in as an aviation cadet. I'm going to tell you one time, and you better remember that." And so to this day, I remember his serial number is 45637A. He told me one time, and I remembered. So I was a little bit scared because he was like, "You guys, you got to pay attention."
In the course of his military career, Mert Baker logged more than 7,000 hours of flying time, flew 185 combat missions, and received a long list of awards, including the Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross, Air Medal with 11 oak leaf clusters, and others. Mert retired from the Air Force in 1981 with the rank of Major General and continued working as a military contract consultant for many years. From Jennies to jets, he had quite the remarkable aviation career.